Nike just made a move that rocked the NFL, and it wasn't about sneakers or style. It was about power. In a stunning decision, the sports giant officially terminated all promotional deals with Dillon Gabriel after a brutal performance stretch, and within hours, shifted its full marketing weight behind Shadur Sanders. This isn't a small tweak in branding, it's a statement. The biggest brand in sports just chose its quarterback, and it's not the one Cleveland's been starting. Sources say Nike's top executives were watching every snap of that disastrous divisional game. 2 fumbles, 3 interceptions, total collapse. But what fans didn't know was that in Beaverton, Oregon, Nike's strategy team was taking notes, analyzing every throw, every mistake, every moment of body language. Within 72 hours, the verdict was in. Gabriel's time as a Nike face was over. Endorsement shoots canceled. Custom cleat design shelved. His image erased from upcoming players. Campaigns. And in his place, Shadur Sanders, calm, confident, and unshaken amid the chaos. Nike didn't just pick a new athlete, they picked a new era. Their message is loud and clear. They're done betting on safe choices. They want leaders, culture drivers, athletes who don't flinch when the spotlight hits. And for Cleveland, that single corporate decision didn't just shift marketing dollars. It might have just rewritten the Browns' entire quarterback future. It all started on a night that was supposed to save the Browns' season. Under the bright lights of prime time, Dillon Gabriel had the stage. His moment to prove the critics wrong, to show Cleveland he could lead. But what followed wasn't just a bad game. It was a meltdown, the kind of performance that doesn't just end drives, it ends reputations. 2 brutal fumbles, 3 interceptions, missed protection calls that left his offensive line helpless, and the crowd booing before halftime. Cameras caught his expression on the sideline, lost, disconnected, shell-shocked. It wasn't just defeat, it was unraveling in real time. Analysts called it one of the worst quarterback showings of the season. ESPN dubbed it a live implosion. But while fans vented and media piled on, something far more serious was happening behind the scenes. In Nike's headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. Sources say Nike's marketing division was watching every snap. Not as fans, but as strategists. Every bad throw, every fumble, every post-game quote was logged, analyzed, and compared against fan sentiment data. By the end of the weekend, the conclusion was clear. Gabriel no longer fit the Nike brand. His image, once tied to confidence and potential, now screamed inconsistency. His engagement numbers had dipped, his popularity flatlined, and his composure under pressure was evaporating fast. Within 72 hours, Nike pulled the plug. Scheduled ad shoots? Canceled. His custom cleat prototype? Shelved indefinitely. It was cold, calculated, and final. The kind of corporate breakup that leaves no room for emotion. And while the NFL world debated stats and coaching decisions, Nike had already made theirs. The Gabriel era wasn't just struggling, it was over. And somewhere in the background, another name, Shadur Sanders, was quietly rising from the shadows, about to take the spotlight that Gabriel had just lost. Nike doesn't panic, it plans. When the rest of the sports world was debating whether Dillon Gabriel just had a bad night or a bad career, Nike's boardroom had already moved on. Inside the walls of its Beaverton headquarters, this wasn't a reaction, it was execution. Executives didn't see emotion, they saw data. Their analytics team compared engagement rates, fan sentiment, locker room influence, and even sideline body language. What they found was brutal. Gabriel's trajectory was collapsing. His public image, once hopeful, had become radioactive. Every metric, from jersey sales to TikTok mentions, was trending down. To Nike, that's not just a slump, that's a liability. So, in true Nike fashion, they didn't issue a press release or a sympathy statement. They just moved fast and quiet. Gabriel's scheduled media shoots? Gone. His signature cleat? Scrapped mid-production. His face on the next Cleveland campaign? Erased overnight. And while most saw this as harsh, Nike saw it as necessary. Because for them, it's not about who you are now, it's about who you'll be tomorrow. And in that equation, one name started lighting up their screens across every internal report: Shedeur Sanders. Sanders wasn't just an athlete, he was a brand waiting to explode. Calm under pressure, magnetic on camera, and carrying that rare mix of discipline and swagger that defines generational stars. The same confidence that made him stand out at Colorado was now captivating NFL audiences before he'd even started a full game. Nike saw it instantly. To them, Shedeur wasn't the future of Cleveland, he was the future of the culture. A quarterback who didn't just play football, but shaped narratives. That's the ruthless truth about Nike. They don't chase loyalty, they chase legacy. And when they see the next icon, they don't wait for him to rise. They build the stage beneath his feet. While Dillon Gabriel's reputation was collapsing in real time, Shadur Sanders was quietly doing what he always does: staying calm, working in silence, and letting the noise build around him. He didn't say a word, didn't drop a quote, didn't chase headlines. But somehow, everybody was talking about him anyway. That's the thing about Shedeur. He doesn't need a microphone to command attention. He's got that unteachable presence, the poise, the confidence, the look in his eyes that says, "I know where I'm going even if you don't." Nike saw it before most people did. They'd already watched him at Colorado. The precision, the cool composure under pressure, the way he turned every drive into a story. But what really hooked them wasn't the stats. It was the brand power. The way Shedeur connected with people beyond football. The charisma that made his highlights viral. His gear sell out, and his quotes live on social media for days. Executives at Nike's athlete marketing division reportedly called him a marketer's dream. Not just because of his name, though being Coach Prime's son doesn't hurt, but because Shedeur gets it. He understands the art of control. He knows when to speak, when to stay silent, and how to turn that silence into anticipation. When Nike made the call to center their next campaign around Shedeur, they didn't just sign an athlete, they invested in a movement. This wasn't about selling cleats, it was about storytelling, about capturing the rise of a new leader in real time. For Nike, it was like discovering LeBron before the NBA draft. The same electricity, the same "he's next" feeling. And they wanted to own that narrative from day one. Because here's the truth: the sports world doesn't wait for greatness anymore. It predicts it. And Nike's bet on Shadur Sanders isn't just belief, it's prophecy. When Nike moves, the sports world doesn't just notice, it shifts. And the moment they dropped Dillon Gabriel and pushed all their chips behind Shadur Sanders, it was like a cultural earthquake. You could feel it ripple through every corner of football, from the front offices to the fans scrolling Twitter. Inside Nike's headquarters, the decision wasn't made in a quiet meeting room. According to insiders, the brand's entire athlete marketing division was pulled into an emergency strategy session. Executives reviewed performance charts, social media heat maps, and public sentiment data that all pointed to one truth: Gabriel was no longer a viable face of the franchise. The audience had already moved on to Shedeur. Within 48 hours, Gabriel's upcoming Cleveland campaign was scrapped. His promotional shoots canceled, his billboard mock-ups deleted from servers, his signature cleat quietly shelved in a Beaverton warehouse. Nike's PR team didn't issue a statement. They didn't need to. The silence was the message. Meanwhile, Shedeur's rollout began, fast. A global brand package built around his energy, confidence, and story. The young QB with superstar bloodline and unshakable focus. Reports suggest the deal could reach 8 figures, including international ad campaigns, digital media crossovers, and his own apparel line. But this wasn't just business. It was symbolism. Because for the first time in years, Nike wasn't waiting for a player to prove himself. They were creating the moment, betting on future, not past. It was a move that said more than any press conference could. This is our guy. Fans online immediately caught on. Hashtags like #ShedurEra and Nike Knows started trending. TikTok edits mixed highlight reels with Nike slogans. Cleveland talk shows debated what it meant for the team's quarterback room, if the brand that built Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron had just chosen its next legend. And deep down, everyone understood what had just happened. This wasn't a sponsorship. It was a coronation. The moment Nike's decision leaked, the internet exploded. Within minutes, Shadur Sanders' name was trending across every major platform. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. It wasn't just fans reacting. It was an entire movement forming in real time. Cleveland's social feeds turned into a digital battleground. On one side, you had die-hard fans, celebrating the move as long overdue validation. Finally, Nike sees what our coaching staff can't. On the other, loyalists defending Dillon Gabriel, claiming the media was manufacturing hype. But it didn't matter which side you were on. Everyone was talking. TikTok creators wasted no time. Within hours, there were side-by-side highlight compilations. Gabriel's missed throws next to Shedur's pinpoint lasers from practice footage. Hashtags like #NikeBelieves, #ShedurTime, and #ClevelandShift racked up millions of views overnight. Every sports meme page, podcast, and reaction channel had their own take, turning a brand deal into the biggest cultural story in football. Even celebrities and athletes joined the conversation. Former NFL players dropped cryptic tweets like, "The swoosh always knows first." ESPN's Stephen A. Smith went viral after saying, "Nike just did what Cleveland refuses to, crown their real quarterback." Shannon Sharp doubled down. "You don't invest 8 figures in a backup unless he's about to be the guy." Meanwhile, Shadur stayed silent, just like always. One story, no words. Just him on the practice field, lacing up unreleased Nike cleats. Captioned, "Work now, talk later." That one post alone got millions of views and thousands of comments, all saying the same thing. He's ready. By the end of the week, Shadur had gained over 500,000 new followers across platforms. Merchandise mock-ups flooded Reddit. Cleveland fans started showing up to open practices wearing Nike hoodies with his number. What started as a corporate pivot had become a cultural takeover. Shadur didn't just win the internet, he became it. And for the first time in years, Cleveland fans believed again. Not in a logo, not in a system, but in a player who hadn't even started a single game yet. Inside the Browns facility, the mood changed overnight. What used to be quiet tension suddenly felt like walking through a storm that hadn't quite hit yet, but everyone knew it was coming. Nike's announcement didn't just make headlines. It sent a message that echoed. Sports brand in the world had just crowned a king, and no coach in Cleveland could ignore that. Kevin Stefanski tried to keep control, insisting that business decisions don't dictate football. But that line didn't land. Players could feel the energy shift. One offensive lineman even told a local reporter off record, "Nike just said what we've all been thinking. He's the guy. Everyone knows it now." Gabriel, meanwhile, walked into practice like a ghost, present but fading. His once commanding huddle felt cold, distant. Teammates still respected him, but the belief was gone. You could see it in their eyes. Every incompletion felt heavier. Every mistake echoed longer. And standing a few yards away, Shadur didn't say a word. He just threw. Smooth, precise, focused. Nike's decision wasn't just a business move. It was a cultural statement. It said something bigger than football, bigger than the Browns, and bigger than Shadur Sanders himself. It was about the shifting balance of power in modern sports. where influence, image, and identity collide to shape what fans believe in. For decades, brands like Nike didn't follow the story. They created it. They turned athletes into movements, sneakers into status symbols, and moments into global conversations. And by putting their full weight behind Shadur Sanders, they weren't just betting on a quarterback. They were anointing a symbol, a player who represents new school swagger mixed with old school grind. Someone who grew up under the spotlight, but still carries himself like he's got everything to prove. The timing made it even more powerful. The Browns were in chaos, the fan base divided, and the franchise desperate for something to believe in. And out of nowhere, Nike gave them that. Not through a press release, not through a speech, but through action. When the biggest sports brand in the world publicly chooses their guy, it changes the narrative instantly. It's no longer about stats or win percentages. It's about identity. Fans aren't just rooting for a team anymore. They're rooting for a story. And Shadur fits perfectly into the one thing Cleveland's always chased but never found: hope that feels real. Sports marketing experts are already calling it the LeBron Blueprint 2.0, a strategy built not just around athletic ability, but cultural relevance. Shadur isn't just the Browns' next man up. He's the face of an era where quarterbacks are influencers, leaders, and brands all at once. And maybe that's what makes this moment so rare. Because somewhere between broken plays and brand deals, the story stopped being about who throws the ball and started being about who moves the world. In the days following Nike's bombshell decision, the aftershocks were felt far beyond Cleveland. Every sports network, talk show, and podcast had one burning question: what happens now? Inside the Browns facility, the silence grew louder by the day. Coaches dodged questions, players whispered in corners, and Shadur Sanders' every move became front-page news. His warm-ups were filmed, his quotes dissected, his smiles turned into headlines. Suddenly, a backup quarterback had become the most talked-about athlete in the league, all because of a single swoosh. For Dillon Gabriel, the fallout was brutal. Sponsors backed away, local media turned cold, and fans who once defended him began to fade into the noise. The reality hit hard. Once Nike pulls its support, there's no PR team in the world that can spin that story back. He wasn't just losing playing time. He was losing his place in the business of football. Meanwhile, Shadur was everywhere without saying a word. The same calm demeanor that had frustrated critics now worked in his favor. Every headline, every endorsement, every reaction only made him look more composed, more ready. And the more he stayed silent, the more powerful his image became. Analysts started drawing parallels to LeBron's first Cleveland run. A city desperate for a hero, a brand searching for the next icon, and a fan base craving someone to believe in. Except this time, the story wasn't about basketball. It was about leadership, timing, and cultural takeover. Behind the scenes, Nike's team was already planning Shadur's first campaign launch, an image that would blend his confidence with Cleveland's blue-collar heart. "Work now, talk later," the tagline read. Simple, defiant, and undeniably him. So now, the city waits, the team waits, the league waits, because when the biggest brand in sports calls you the future, there's no turning back. And maybe, just maybe, Cleveland's long, painful search for a franchise savior didn't end in heartbreak this time. Maybe it just began with a brand and a belief.